Hey guys, so today I'll be talking about Godzilla vs. Kong. I've been the biggest fan of this franchise since I saw the first trailer. It was a few days before my birthday, I'm pretty sure, and I fell in love. I think that was the first trailer that really made me feel goosebumps, and I was so immersed. I watched that trailer a million times that week, and a movie that fully pushed me into being a proper fanboy of film and everything about it. As in, that was a movie that made me get into, religiously checking out the box office, and I still do it. Falling in love with the world around film as well, as in, the marketing, the box office, the hype, the fandom, and everything. So, this movie and this franchise obviously holds a very strong place in my heart. However, when I first watched Godzilla in 2014, I think it was, I spent hours every day looking up at theories and just watching, all sorts of videos about it. The fact that no matter how good or bad it was, I would love it, and that was true. And if I'm being honest, I did love it. I loved it a lot, and I was one of the few people who were defending it in the beginning. And I thought the whole thing that Gareth Edwards did with showing Godzilla a little bit, I thought was very artful and creative and unique. But looking back, and just a year after the movie released, that's when I started to realize that I had zero interest in watching it again, and I didn't. I am someone who buys movies religiously, and the fact that I have not had any urge to buy it, even for like 50p, like at, a secondhand shop, just really goes to show that, it was good to watch in cinemas, and it was nice to be excited about it, but it's not something that was actually consistently interesting in the end. I smell bleach, 1 second. I watched it 3 times in cinemas, and I brought, like, the first time I went alone, second time with my friends, and the third time with my family. I was telling everyone to watch it, and I was so invested in the box office, and, like, you'd think I'd have some interest in, like, whatever the movie made, because I was so, behind promoting this movie. It was crazy. I was in complete fanboy mode, and trust me, not again. Because then we had Godzilla, King of Monsters, which disappointed me. All 3 movies in the Godzilla trilogy. I'm gonna leave Kong Skull Island like as a separate spin-off sort of thing, which I did like quite a bit. However, I think I watched that once in theaters, and I don't think I'll ever watch it again. However, I will say that there's one shot when one of the pilot of the helicopters is flying over Kong, and I think there's some explosions going on, and he's wearing some cool black aviators, and you see the explosion taking place, but through the reflection on his sunglasses, and I feel like that's a shot that's always stuck in my mind, but that's sadly not enough for me to make me want to watch the whole movie again, and I was never too big of a fan of Kong. However, I will say this movie made me care a lot about Kong, because I went into this expecting me to just be like, Godzilla, 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 but if anything, the story of Kong and the little girl was a lot more compelling than I thought, and easily the most compelling relationship in the story, if not, obviously, between the 2 kaiju monsters. Godzilla King of Monsters disappointed me. I loved seeing King Ghidorah and Mothra and everything. It was nice to see it on the big scale, but to be frank, I can't remember a single shot of that movie. I can't remember anything. I watched it once in theaters, and I remember just being so excited and just loving it, but it's very forgettable. King of Monsters, and now we had this. I hated the fact that it was pushed to being released now anyways. I think, especially after watching, it's definitely something that needs to be watched in theaters, like, I have a very deep love for watching films in theaters, and it was not the same watching it at home. However, I will say that it's the first time I've ever, like, bought a movie, as in, like, rented it on release date online at home, and I got some snacks, and I think it was like 3 a.m. in the morning, because I had a late shift at work the night before. It was a very thoroughly enjoying experience. I was jumping in my bed, I was hyped up, I thought everything was epic, but I think it would have been a lot better to have watched it in theaters, and trust me, I will when they open. I'm currently in Manchester in the UK, and they're set to open up around May 17th. That's a month and a half away, so I think it's definitely worth renting it right now. After watching this movie, I feel like there are certain aspects of the movie that could be considered spoilers. So let's talk about Godzilla vs. Kong. The production was very good. So yeah, Godzilla vs. Kong was directed by Adam Wingard. I have heard of him before. Let me just... Blair Witch, Your Next VHS. Oh. Oh, okay. Well, he really did a damn good job. And I think there's something to be noted about the scale of these monsters. Yes, they're huge and they're towering and they're bigger than cities, but being able to show that in, you know, especially since I have to watch it on my laptop and TV, but my Wi-Fi wasn't so great, so I have to revert back to watching it on my laptop, you know. It's crazy that you can still see the grandiosity and the scale of these monsters compared to everything else, you know. Straight off the bat, I generally did find the human dialogue to be somewhat interesting. I didn't find anything to be cringy, which I kind of do remember part 2 having some of that. If you search anything about this movie, you'll see the same thing coming out of everyone's mouth, that it's a great movie, great action, but the human element is very lacking. And I wouldn't disagree with that point. However, I do think it might be a bit exaggerated. I think out of all the films, including Kong Skull Island, the human story in this interested me the most. I was actually interested in these characters. I didn't care about any of the characters that much, but honestly, you don't really need to in a movie like this. Or maybe you should, some might argue, but to me, you know, especially like 4 movies down the line, pretty much the end of this Monsterverse, because if anything, all the Monsterverse movies have been building up to this movie. Anything that would come after would be as a response to the success of this film, which seems to be doing well. From what I've seen, it's already 200 million at the box office, and it's literally like, what? It's just released in the US and the UK, so it seems to be doing well. And if I remember correctly, apparently it's doing better than A King of Monsters, which is crazy because we're in a pandemic. I thought some of the dialogue was funny. And in addition to all of that, I love the fact that the human element was so reduced. If I remember correctly. Again, I've not watched 1 since it released, and I've not watched King of Monsters, again, since it released. So I might be forgetting things, or I might be more lenient, because I will always have, you know, a strong love for any sort of Godzilla movie, you know? But I enjoyed whatever human content we got, and I thought that it wasn't so overbearing as it was, especially in the first one. I feel like the first one really was shoving that whole Aaron Taylor Paul storyline down my throat. I did not like it at all. I thought his character was the most boring character I've ever seen. Like, I was trying so hard to like him, but it just didn't work out. And I've seen him in some other movie. I'm pretty sure the whole battle between the two of them wasn't saved for the tail end of the movie. I love that. Sort of halfway through the movie, they have a very, well, I can't say a brief, but they do have, you know, a rather limited interaction, and I love that. And I was a bit worried after that would be the end of, you know, Godzilla vs. Kong, and then, to not spoil anything, the following aspect of the story would sort of eliminate the idea that they would have to fight again. They fight more than once, and it is amazing. Every time they're on screen, it is just phenomenally great. I don't think I watched any trailers for this movie, you know, because the second one really disappointed me, and if anything, I've not really been keeping up with new movies as much as I used to keep up with movies in general. I think making some sort of notes are essential because I seem to be going nowhere with my thoughts. The standout performance of this movie was Gia. She really, really properly conveyed the emotions. It was just absolutely perfect. I would have to say that if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't have had so much sympathy for Kong. Not saying I hate Kong, but, you know, in the context of this movie, I am definitely biased towards Godzilla. There was a character like Gia who really pulled me into liking Kong a lot more than I thought I would. I love watching movies at home. I mean, I have tons of DVDs, so it's not like, you know, I can't get immersed if I'm watching it at home, but I was jumping on my bed, I was screaming, and I was like vividly hyped out with the whole cinematic masterpiece between these two epic kaiju. I thought it was phenomenal. Even the emotions between these two kaiju was just so... I can't put words to it, you know. And there's this moment where Godzilla and Kong, you know, look at each other and they're, you know, close to each other, and there's just so much emotion. And I loved the end. A conspiracy podcaster, I thought he was pretty funny, and he was obviously the sort of comic relief, and thankfully it wasn't so strong. I thought that it was a good dose of comic relief. I feel like recurring little jokes throughout the film about tap water, and I thought that joke was really, really funny. And I thought even that scene in that little, I think it was some sort of Chinese restaurant or something, I thought that was a very beautiful and intimate scene. Whole story with Millie Bobby Brown and her character and the team, basically, I thought it was alright. It was fun to watch on screen, but it wasn't completely essential, especially, in hindsight, how little that actually ended up doing. And if anything, I would say that was a more incomprehensible aspect of the human story in this film. Just the choices and how some things easily come about. And quite early on in the film, the woman who's taking care of Gia, the fact that she so easily agrees to letting Kong, out of his little facility, and essentially alluring Godzilla to him, I thought that was very weak. That was the first decision that made me a bit iffy. And then after that, I think I just put, that aspect of me all the way down, and I just accepted everything for what it was. And I think that's what everyone should do in this film. Just don't look too closely into the human decisions, Just watch it as it unfolds and just be entertained. That storyline with her wasn't that useful. It was more so some comic relief, and maybe it was supposed to be geared towards the younger crowd anyways. I love that we got to see a lot of Kong versus Godzilla, and I love that it wasn't just for a few minutes here and there like it was in the first movie, because if anything, I think someone actually counted, you see Godzilla for a total of 6 minutes in a movie about Godzilla. That is ridiculous. I simp for Godzilla pretty bad. I think it's pretty obvious. I actually had a Godzilla plushie my friend gave me, but I had to leave it when I moved. So now I have to deal with the dinosaur from IKEA. The Telk. Whatever you call it. But this was Godzilla, and you know what? I slept with him too. But I think that's safe to say that I was very much satisfied. I think whatever hype and whatever disappointment that's been building up since the release of the first movie in 2014 to now, almost 7 years of hype and just expectation and the strong wanting to, get the content, get the movie that I wanted. I feel like this film satisfied it. Whatever urge, whatever itch I had for a good Godzilla movie, this movie was it. This movie was it. I will say that up until the third act, I was a bit disappointed at how much it was focused on Kong and the humans, and Godzilla was sort of like the side character making a cameo. It wasn't even about him making cameos. It was more so about the fact that it felt like Godzilla's impact on the story was very minimal and weak. To that point, it felt like every Godzilla movie was about everything except Godzilla, and it just frustrated me. I just want a movie about Godzilla, and I think that's what all the fans want as well. But that third act made up for it, and I loved it. I loved how lengthy the fight was. I loved how much you got to see of them, and it was phenomenal. Like the cinematography, the acting, and the emotions in these two gigantic kaiju. It wasn't just two monsters fighting. It was the emotions in their eyes. It was just the emotions in their body language and the way they were hitting each other. Every single hit to each other was like a killing blow. The rivalry, I feel like they could have explained that a bit more. I have my own understanding of it because I've done my own research prior, and obviously you learn some stuff in the film, but I feel like they could have really explored, if anything, they could have explored quite a lot of things between the rivalry between Kong and Godzilla. I feel like by now I still don't get what it was. Were they rivals, or was it like Kong's parents? Or was it like species versus species? Like, yeah, I thought the ending satisfied me a lot. I love the fact that it wasn't, I'm not going to spoil you guys obviously, but let's be real. I feel like it's become a trend for when a movie is pitting two characters or two things, or A and B versus each other. Woke ending is to sort of have it be that they don't fight, or they don't need to fight, and that there's some hidden villain, or that there is no villain. And it's nice to see it time to time, but it's a bit annoying when that seems to be the case every single time with movies like this. So it was nice to see that with this movie that there was an actual sort of conclusion. Again, I respected their decision to do that a lot. Again, just like the first movie got me into box offices and fandoms and movie theories, and continuing my love for film that was established a few years prior with a different movie, which I'll tell you guys in some sort of video. it's nice that this movie sort of is like the one to push me back into it. You know, it's clearly critically quite successful as well, and the fans love it as well. So hopefully the box office numbers shoot up, and hopefully they decide to make more movies in this universe. There's some things I want to say about that, but I can't say without spoiling it. So from this point onward, it's going to be spoilers, and yeah. So I'm gonna give you guys time to leave. And well, if I had to give this movie a rating, if there's something I love to do as soon as I walk out of the theater or watching a movie, I love to open my notes app, make a little review, and put like a score next to it. And the score, in some occasions, tends to come down a point when the hype factor goes, or when I see other people's opinions about it, and I'm like, oh yeah, I shouldn't like it as much as I did. But you know what? I loved it. I don't have a fixed rating just yet. Maybe I will after I talk about spoilers. Maybe it'll help me flush out my emotions a bit more. It might be a 9 for me, because I give movies personally 10 out of 10 if it's an amazing movie, yes, and whatever that encompasses, but also it's one that like really hits my heart and something I'm gonna own physically in the most special edition and love it for like the rest of my life. And I would say this movie probably fits the former in that it's a great movie, fantastic, but I'm not gonna like run to buy the Blu-ray of this, you know. So I think it's safe to say it's either an 8 or a 9, but most likely a 9. I'm gonna be lenient, especially since it's been a fucking year since we've got a new movie. Well, we did have Tenet and Wonder Woman, which oddly enough I was able to watch them in cinemas, and I'm not able to watch this. But trust me when I say May 17 or whenever the UK decides to open up cinemas, I will be going again. Maybe with a friend, maybe on my own, I don't know, I don't care, but I will have to see this again on the big screen. But yeah, if you're here right now, then you want to talk about the spoilers. There's so much to be said about this movie, especially now that I've watched a few more clips of it. I have to skim through the movie because I've got 24 hours left on my Apple TV rental, and like, I hate the idea of renting something online, you know? Like, either physically buying it or digitally owning it, so. But yeah, it's crazy that I've spent £16 on this rental, and I'm gonna have to spend like £6 or £7 on the movie ticket, and then I might buy it, I might not, I'm still not sure yet. But yeah, let's talk about spoilers. I loved Gia, and I loved her connection with Kong, and I think that was a very strong element in the story. Probably the second strongest after obviously the connection between Godzilla and Kong. I think that going forward, now that Kong has obviously survived, which I'm so happy about, I love that Godzilla didn't kill Kong, and I love the fact that Kong didn't necessarily submit. I love the fact that he sort of put his weapon down, and it was a sort of like you win, or like, you know, a sort of thing like, I'm letting this go, or like, fine, let's stop. It's not exactly submitting, but it's a sort of, you know, it's a start, and I like that a lot. I think that was very in character for both of them and very unique. You know, throughout the film, they kept throwing this idea that Godzilla is going to kill a potential other alpha male, even though in this situation, Kong is not like King Ghidorah. You know, Kong is obviously a very friendly and caring kaiju. So I like the fact that Godzilla didn't just up and kill Kong. So I love that dynamic in the end. I think that was a very, very cool ending that I did not expect. Hell, I didn't even think they would fight till that close death. I thought that middle fight and halfway through the film would be it, and the rest would be with Mechagodzilla. And let's talk about Mechagodzilla. I did not expect that at all. Even though I'm so aware of it, obviously, I just didn't think it would be in this movie, which is obviously silly to think about because we had King Ghidorah, Mothra, and Rodan in the second film, so obviously they would whip out Mechagodzilla for the third one. I guess I was just too focused on being Kong versus Godzilla without thinking the fact that that's obviously going to be like the true villain, which completely made sense in the lore of the story with the whole Hollow Earth thing. I thought that was interesting. I loved the sci-fi aspect of it. I had to keep my mind very open, and as soon as they went into that scene where they're going obviously into the Hollow Earth, I had to pay so much attention just to figure everything out, and I would have to say that I had to watch that scene twice, back to back, and I still couldn't get things because it seemed like there was like land this way and then land sort of like a mirrored image, and obviously gravity was like reversed basically. I thought that was a very cool idea, But what I didn't understand, and what I still don't right now, I'm actually gonna like look it up right now, is where was the light source coming from? Because if anything, it looked like they were on some sort of surface where there was like this very bright natural light coming from somewhere, and I thought it would be the core of the Earth or whatever power source they were looking for. Apex, the evil company. You know, honestly, I like the fact that they kept it evil and didn't even like try and like make it like a bit, you know, toned down. It was just over the top, typical villain stuff. But obviously it wasn't the core because the actual core was blue and it powered um, Kong's weapon axe. So where did that source of light come from? That made no sense at all. But I love the idea that like all the creatures and like there's a whole other world beneath the world that mankind or humans know above. And halfway through the film, I thought that it would sort of end on a note where Kong is like the ruler of this hollow earth and Godzilla is the ruler of the outer earth. As in, they both fought and they both didn't defeat each other. And it was a sort of tie, and that's how the power gets balanced between the two. So I was very fascinated to see that Godzilla pretty much defeated Kong. I mean, realistic, makes sense, and I'm all for Team Godzilla, and I love that ending. But I also love Kong, and it's also thanks to Gia, which I was trying to say earlier, that I think that going forward, hopefully if they make more movies in the whole MonsterVerse, I feel like they could easily make this little storyline of like Gia as perhaps a teenager or young adult and her relationship being a companion to Kong. I think that would be a really, really cool story. Or, you know, if not even a movie, like a comic or like a novel, I think that would be like a very cool story, you know. If I was 14 again, I would totally write a fan fiction about that, you know, or like a role play on some sort of website like I used to do. But yeah, but obviously the actor who played Gia is phenomenal, and I would love to see her again. So they could either do something like that, or maybe like a half thing, where half the movie is young Gia and Kong, and then the other half is like another actor portraying Gia like as a teenager or young adult. So I think there's lots of aspects of the MonsterVerse, obviously with Godzilla and all the other monsters, and maybe more mecha kind of monsters. I think that was really cool. However, I do kind of wish that Mechagodzilla had its own film and was like a full-on villain, not just like a little tease in the end. But the fight between Mechagodzilla and Kong, and it was crazy. Like you could see how much stronger Mechagodzilla was because, especially since it had the whole head of like King Ghidorah telepathically communicating and stuff like that, and the whole like AI element with that. I thought that was very smart to do, considering where the story was at that point. Yeah, I think there's lots of hope for the MonsterVerse, and I hope they make more films in this universe. I'm just thinking of whatever else I could talk about. Spoilers. That's everything that I have to say for spoilers. I'm gonna just make a proper like little written review of this, and I think going forward when I review movies, I'm going to make sure I have detailed notes to guide me through it, because I feel like my thoughts are scattered all over the place. But this is my first video on this channel, so maybe subscribe if you like movie reviews. I'll see you guys later.